Commander Elias Ward stood at the edge of the landing platform and watched the twin suns slowly rise over the horizon of Cayley's prime. The desert world shimmered with heat even in the early morning, its golden sands stretching endlessly toward distant cliffs that looked like broken teeth against the sky. Alien ships floated silently above the diplomatic complex, their shapes unlike anything built on Earth. Some curved like living creatures, others sharp and geometric, glowing with faint colors that shifted with the light. For Elias, this was the most important mission of his life. Humanity had entered the Galactic Coalition only 3 years ago, and every interaction still felt like walking through unknown territory. Humans were new, unpredictable, and according to many species, dangerous. The Coalition had sent representatives from dozens of civilizations to evaluate whether humanity could truly be trusted as equal partners. Elias adjusted the collar of his uniform and took a slow breath. He reminded himself to stay calm, observant, and respectful. That was the advice given by Earth's diplomatic council. Humans needed to prove they could listen as much as they could act. Inside the complex, the architecture felt alive. Smooth walls curved without corners, glowing softly with bioluminescent patterns that responded to movement. The air carried a faint metallic scent mixed with something sweet that Elias could not identify. Alien delegates moved through the hallways in quiet groups, speaking in tones that varied from musical chirps to low vibrations felt more than heard. He was used to feeling like an outsider, but today felt different. Today was the first direct negotiation session, and rumors suggested that several species were already skeptical of humanity's intentions. Elias entered the council chamber, a circular room with a transparent ceiling that revealed the sky above. Seats were arranged in a wide ring, each adapted for the physical needs of different species. Some were floating platforms, others resembled pools of liquid. Elias took his assigned seat and placed his translator device at his waist, ensuring it synced with the room's network. One by one, the delegates arrived. Then she entered. Lyra moved with quiet grace, her tall form outlined by the soft glow of the chamber lights. Her species had elongated limbs and smooth silver-blue skin that reflected colors like water. Her eyes were large and calm, carrying an intelligence that made Elias feel as if she could see beyond surface thoughts. She wore a translator similar to his, clipped at her side. He had read about her before arriving. Lyra was known as a precise negotiator, someone who rarely showed emotion. Her people valued discipline above all else, believing emotional control to be the highest form of intelligence. She took her seat across from him, and for a brief moment their eyes met. There was no smile, no greeting beyond a small nod, but Elias felt something shift in the atmosphere. The meeting began with formal introductions. Representatives spoke about trade routes, cultural exchanges, and security concerns. Elias listened carefully, speaking only when necessary. He had learned quickly that silence often earned more respect than constant talking. As discussions grew more intense, tension filled the room. One reptilian delegate questioned humanity's history of internal conflict. Another species expressed concern about human emotional unpredictability. Elias responded calmly, explaining that humanity's diversity and emotional depth were sources of strength, not weakness. During a pause in conversation, something unexpected happened. Lyra's translator slipped from her waist and fell to the floor with a soft metallic sound. She bent down to pick it up. The movement seemed simple, but Elias noticed subtle details. The slowness of her motion felt deliberate. Her posture held a certain intention, as if she knew exactly how others would perceive it. Several alien delegates shifted slightly in their seats, their reactions barely noticeable but clearly meaningful within their cultural frameworks. Elias felt a moment of confusion. To human eyes, the action might appear casual or even slightly playful, but the atmosphere suggested something deeper. Lyra retrieved the translator and returned to her seat without acknowledging the moment. The meeting continued, but Elias sensed invisible currents moving beneath the conversation. He focused on maintaining professionalism, refusing to let his thoughts wander. Whatever had just happened was likely part of alien communication norms he did not yet understand. As the hours passed, Lyra occasionally glanced toward him, her gaze steady and analytical. Each time, Elias kept his expression neutral. He responded to questions thoughtfully, choosing words carefully to avoid misunderstanding. The session ended with no final agreement, but progress had been made. Delegates began leaving in small groups, their conversations quiet and intense. Elias stood to leave when Lyra approached him. "You observed more than you spoke," she said through the translator, her voice smooth and calm. "That is unusual for your species." He allowed himself a small smile. "Listening is underrated." Her eyes seemed to brighten slightly. "Perhaps." They walked together toward the exit. Outside, the air had cooled and the twin suns cast long shadows across the desert. Elias hesitated, unsure whether to address the earlier moment, but curiosity pushed him forward. "May I ask something?" he said carefully. "You may." "When your translator fell, was that accidental?" She paused. For a brief second, her expression shifted, almost amused. "Accidents are rare among my people," she replied. Elias felt a quiet realization settle in his mind. He had been tested. "Then I hope I responded appropriately." "You responded with restraint," she said. "Many would not." Before he could ask more, she inclined her head and walked away, leaving him standing alone beneath the alien sky. As he returned to his quarters, Elias considered what the moment meant. Humanity was being evaluated in ways he could not fully predict. Every gesture, every reaction carried weight beyond simple conversation. Later that night, reviewing recordings of the meeting, he noticed subtle reactions from other delegates during Lyra's movement. Some had watched him closely, as if waiting for a response. He leaned back in his chair, realization growing stronger. The test had never been about temptation. It had been about control, and somehow, without fully understanding the rules, he had passed. Outside his window, alien ships drifted silently across the stars, and Elias wondered what other unseen trials awaited him. The next morning arrived quietly, but Elias felt the weight of yesterday's events before he even opened his eyes. The alien sky outside his quarters shifted between soft violet and pale gold as the twin suns slowly rose. Kaylee's prime never truly felt still. Even silence carried a sense of watching, as if the planet itself observed every movement. He sat at the edge of his bed and reviewed the meeting again in his mind. Lyra's words echoed clearly. "Accidents are rare among my people." That meant the moment with the translator had been deliberate. A test, but what kind of test required such subtlety? Elias dressed carefully, choosing movements that were calm and measured. Humans were new to the coalition, and every small action mattered. He had learned quickly that alien cultures often communicated through gestures humans might overlook. As he entered the main corridor, other delegates moved past him. Some nodded politely, others watched him with quiet curiosity. The atmosphere felt different from the previous day. There was a tension in the air, as if unseen decisions were being formed behind closed doors. During breakfast in the communal hall, a tall, thin alien with translucent skin approached him. The translator rendered the being's name as Sarat. "You are the human diplomat," Sarat said in a gentle tone. "I am," Elias replied. Sarat studied him for a long moment. "You passed an observation yesterday." Elias paused mid-sip of his drink. "Observation?" Sarat's thin lips curved slightly. "Your restraint, many watched." Elias leaned back, suddenly aware that the meeting had been more than a simple negotiation. "Why?" "Some fear humanity," Sarat said. "They believe humans are driven by impulse, emotional storms." Elias almost laughed but held it back. "And you?" "I believe storms can shape worlds," Sarat replied softly before walking away. The words stayed with him long after the conversation ended. Later that day, the second council session began. This time the tone was sharper. Discussions about military cooperation surfaced, and several species questioned humanity's history again. One delegate implied that humans had only survived because of aggression. Elias felt irritation rise but kept his voice calm. He explained humanity's history honestly, its conflicts, its mistakes, and its ability to learn from failure. Some delegates listened carefully, others remained skeptical. Throughout the session, Lyra watched him silently. Her gaze felt different now, less analytical and more curious. At one point, their eyes met and Elias sensed approval, though she said nothing. During a break between discussions, Lyra approached him again. "You learn quickly," she said. "I'm trying," he answered. She tilted her head slightly. "You realize the significance of yesterday?" "Yes," he said quietly. "It was a test, and you did not react as expected." "What was expected?" he asked. She hesitated, as if considering how much to reveal. Many species believe humans cannot separate instinct from action. They wanted proof. And you? I wanted truth, she replied. They walked together through a corridor that opened onto a balcony overlooking the desert. Warm wind carried grains of sand across the stone floor. My people, she continued, use layered communication. Actions carry meaning beyond words. The translator incident was a signal. A challenge. Some delegates wished to see if you would behave predictably. Elias nodded slowly. And if I had, humanity's position would be weaker today. The honesty surprised him. He appreciated it. Thank you for telling me, he said. Lyra looked toward the horizon. Do not thank me yet. The real challenge approaches. Before he could ask what she meant, alarms sounded faintly inside the complex. Not loud enough to signal danger, but enough to draw attention. Delegates began moving quickly back toward the chamber. The session resumed with new tension. A rival faction presented evidence suggesting humans had interfered with a minor trade agreement weeks earlier. The accusation shocked Elias. He knew the claim was false, but the presentation was convincing, supported by manipulated data. Murmurs filled the room. Several delegates watched Elias closely, waiting for his reaction. Instead of responding emotionally, he requested time to examine the data. His calm response seemed to surprise many. As technical teams reviewed the files, Elias quietly analyzed the situation. The evidence contained subtle inconsistencies, timestamps slightly out of alignment, translation patterns inconsistent with human systems. Someone had staged this. The realization unsettled him. Humanity was not just being tested socially, it was being politically targeted. During another pause, Lyra leaned closer. You see it? Yes, he said softly. Someone is trying to provoke a reaction. She nodded once. They hope humans will respond with anger. That would confirm their fears. Elias took a slow breath. He understood now. The earlier test had been preparation for this moment. When discussion resumed, he spoke calmly, pointing out the inconsistencies in the data without accusing anyone directly. His tone remained respectful, focused on logic rather than emotion. Gradually, some delegates began to reconsider the accusations. Behind him, he sensed the atmosphere shifting. After the session ended, Lyra invited him to walk with her outside the complex. The desert stretched endlessly, and distant storms rolled along the horizon like living creatures. My people value balance, she said. Emotion and control together. Humans possess both, but many do not see it. Elias looked at her. And you do, she paused before answering. I am beginning to. They stopped near a ridge overlooking the valley below. Wind tugged at his uniform while her silver-blue skin reflected the fading sunlight. You asked yesterday if you responded appropriately, she continued. The answer is yes. But the tests are not finished. What comes next? A choice, she said quietly. You will soon face a moment where emotion could help or destroy everything. Her words felt heavy, but he nodded. Then I'll be ready. She studied him carefully, and for a brief moment her calm expression softened. That is why I believe in humanity, she said. As they returned to the complex, Elias realized something had changed between them. Trust was forming, not quickly, not easily, but steadily. That night, he reviewed new data provided by coalition analysts. The false accusations were traced to a faction opposed to humanity's rise. They feared humans could reshape galactic politics through empathy and unpredictability. Elias leaned back, staring at the stars outside his window. Humans had always been underestimated. Perhaps that was their greatest advantage. Somewhere in the distance, Lyra watched the same sky, preparing for the coming confrontation. And Elias understood that tomorrow's council session would decide more than political alliances. It would decide whether humanity truly belonged among the stars. The final day of negotiations arrived with a heavy silence that pressed against Elias Ward's thoughts like a coming storm. He stood near the transparent wall of the council chamber and watched alien ships drift slowly through the sky above Cayley's prime. The twin suns had not fully risen yet, and long shadows stretched across the desert below. He had barely slept. The accusations against humanity still echoed in his mind, but what troubled him more was the deeper realization that every movement he made now would shape how the entire galaxy viewed Earth. This was not just diplomacy anymore. It was judgment. Behind him, delegates entered the chamber one by one. Some glanced at him with curiosity, others with caution. A few nodded respectfully. The mood had shifted again. Rumors had spread overnight that the evidence against humanity was being reconsidered. Lyra entered quietly, her presence calm but powerful. She moved to stand beside him without speaking at first. They watched the sky together for a moment. "The decision will be made today," she said softly. Elias nodded. "I know." "You remain calm," she observed. "I'm trying to," he replied honestly. She turned slightly toward him. "Your species fascinates many here. You feel deeply, yet you choose control. That balance is rare." Elias smiled faintly. "We're still learning it ourselves." The council session began soon after. Representatives filled their places, and the circular chamber glowed brighter as translation systems activated. A low hum filled the air as different species prepared to speak. The rival faction presented their final argument first. They insisted that humans were unpredictable and dangerous, showing clips of human history filled with conflict. Their tone was calm but firm, designed to sound logical rather than emotional. Elias listened without interrupting. When they finished, the chamber fell silent. "All parties may respond," announced the central AI mediator. Elias stood slowly. He felt every gaze turn toward him, measuring him, waiting for the reaction they expected. He could feel his heartbeat, but his voice remained steady. "Humanity has a complicated history," he began. "We have made mistakes, we have fought wars, we have hurt each other, but we also learned from those moments." He paused, allowing the translator to carry his words across languages. "Many here believe emotions make us weak," he continued. "But emotions also allow us to understand others. They help us forgive, to change, and to grow." Murmurs moved through the room. He noticed several delegates watching him closely, searching for anger or defensiveness. Instead, he spoke openly. "Yes, humans feel strongly," he said, "but feeling does not mean losing control. It means having something worth protecting." He activated the display behind him, showing evidence that exposed the manipulated data used against humanity. Rather than accusing anyone directly, he explained calmly how the inconsistencies suggested intentional sabotage. The chamber grew tense as delegates studied the evidence. The rival faction attempted to interrupt, but the mediator silenced them. Elias continued, choosing his words carefully. "We came here to join the galaxy as partners, not to dominate or threaten. If we are judged only by our past mistakes, then no civilization here would stand without flaws." Several delegates shifted uncomfortably, acknowledging the truth of his statement. Lyra watched him with quiet intensity. She sensed the turning point approaching. When Elias finished, he did not return to his seat immediately. Instead, he remained standing. "I do not ask for trust without reason," he said, "but I ask that humanity be judged by who we choose to become." Silence followed. The mediator turned to the council for response. One by one, delegates spoke. Some admitted the accusations had been misleading. Others expressed newfound respect for humanity's honesty. Even species that had doubted humans began to reconsider their positions. Finally, Lyra stood. Her species rarely spoke emotionally during council sessions, so the room grew very still. "My people value discipline above all else," she said. "We test potential allies through subtle challenges. Commander Ward was subjected to such a test." Murmurs rose immediately. She continued calmly. "The incident with the translator was intentional. It was designed to provoke instinctive reaction. He responded with respect and restraint. That moment revealed more about humanity than any historical record." Elias felt surprise but remained silent. Lyra turned slowly, meeting the gaze of each delegate. "Humans are not defined by chaos. They are defined by choice. They feel deeply, yet they choose how to act. That is strength." Her words carried weight, shifting the emotional balance of the room. The rival faction attempted one final argument, but their tone lacked conviction now. The council's mood had changed. After hours of discussion, the mediator announced the decision. Humanity would be accepted as full partners within the coalition, recognized not only for technological potential, but for unique diplomatic value. A quiet wave of energy moved through the chamber. Some delegates nodded approvingly, others appeared thoughtful, perhaps reconsidering long-held beliefs about humans. Elias sat down slowly, relief mixing with exhaustion. Lyra turned toward him, her expression softer than he had ever seen. "You did well," she said. "We did well," he replied. After the session ended, delegates approached him individually. Some offered congratulations, others curiosity. For the first time since arriving, Elias felt not like an outsider but like a representative of something valuable. Later, he and Lyra walked outside together again. The desert sky burned orange as the sun set. "You knew they would test me," he said. "Yes, and you helped." "I ensured fairness," she replied. They stood in silence for a while, watching the horizon. "My people believed humans were ruled by instinct," she said finally. "Today you showed something different." "What was that?" She looked at him, eyes reflecting the fading light. "You showed that strength comes from choosing compassion when power is easier." Elias thought about humanity's long journey, the struggles, the mistakes, and the progress that had brought them here. "Humans are complicated," he said. "That is why you are important," she answered. Night fell slowly over Kaylee's prime. Stars appeared one by one, brighter than any Elias had seen before. As alien ships lifted into the sky, carrying news of humanity's acceptance across the galaxy, Elias felt a quiet pride. Humanity had not won through force or dominance. They had won through understanding. Beside him, Lyra stood calmly, no longer just an evaluator but a partner. Together they watched the stars, aware that this was only the beginning of a much larger story, one where humanity's greatest strength was not power, but the ability to connect with others and grow beyond expectations. And for the first time since joining the coalition, Elias felt certain that humanity truly belonged among the stars.